Hi friends, today we're going to be taking a look at the suffixes airy, ory, and uri. And some of our words in this sort are going to have spelling changes because each of our suffixes begin with a vowel, right? So we often have E drops when we're adding on a suffix that begins with a vowel. You're also going to notice that many of our words don't have base words. So we're going to chop off the suffix of each of these, investigate the sounds of them and any spelling changes, noticing whether there's a base word or whether there's just a root inside. So when we take a look about category, you hear ori really clearly, right? Notice category here does not have a base word. When we take a look at bravery, I can chop off that suffix here. And I notice that word brave is inside. There was just an E drop, right? Imaginary. You hear that airy suffix. And again, there is that base word imagine where there was an E drop. So go ahead and find your headers and find these three words and make sure that you're marking them up in the same way that I am so we can investigate these things together. When it comes to part of speech with these suffixes typically designate a noun or an adjective. Imaginary friend, an imaginary creature, those are adjectives, right? But not all of them, maybe. Category, that's a noun. Bravery, that's an adjective. So there's no hard and fast rule on these. Typically, they're nouns or adjectives. So as we take a look at the rest of them, go ahead and just sort of watch the video and think with me on this. Don't worry about sorting your words. You can sort your words at the end and go back and check. So we are just investigating the sounds right now. When I say the word January, I'm going to chop off that suffix. I hear that airy real clearly. Grocery. I didn't hear an uri necessarily. Grocery. No, I take that back. I did hear a pretty clear uri on that one. Grocery. That one's a noun. Or, no, an adjective, right? Like the grocery store. Or I can get groceries. So you see how that can be a noun or an adjective. Secretary. It almost feels like there's the base word secret right there. Secretary. You hear that airy. Directory. Ori. February. There's a month, right? And we've got that airy suffix. Delivery. Century. It sure sounded like uri here, right? But I noticed that this century here doesn't match any of my suffixes. And this is because this suffix right here, URY, is incredibly uncommon. So uncommon that we don't have a header for that. So that's an oddball. Necessary. That airy ending. History. That was interesting. It sounded more like bravery, grocery, delivery, history, didn't it? We're going to go ahead and just match these up by our visual headers right now. Victory, kind of same thing. Dormitory. I hear that ori very clearly. Scenery. Look at that base word, scene. Right? We had an E drop on that one. Ordinary. I hear that airy ending. Machinery. Again, on this one, we had a base word that ended with an E. It was an E drop before adding that suffix that begins with a vowel. library. You know, that airy suffix pretty clear. Military. You know, that airy suffix pretty clear there. Inventory. It's got that base word invent. Inventory. I hear that ori pretty clearly. Mystery. Stationary. You know, that airy suffix again pretty clearly right there. Laboratory. And this is a fancy word for a bathroom, the lavatory. And then I've got another stationary. And this one here almost sounded like it belonged in that airy category when we think of stationary. So you might have already noticed those last two words, stationary and stationary. They're homophones. They're words that sound the same but have different meanings. And so I want to teach you a trick to which meaning is which and how to kind of remember the spelling of each of those. So if we just look at these words, stationary and stationary, I want you to think, what are two meanings of stationary that you know? So stationary here means that you're still. You're stationary means that you're still. And this one with an ERY is stationary, like you're going to write a letter and you get out fancy stationery. And the way that I remember the two, because they sound obviously exactly the same, two different spellings, there's this ER in stationary that means the letter, and there's an ER in letter. So that's my tip to you, how you can remember the difference between them. Stationary that you write a letter on is going to have that ER, like a letter has an ER. Before we move on, I want us to take a look and investigate some of these sounds, because this sort can be really, really tricky. All of our airy words, might even put this in an oddball right here, and this one back around, because this one doesn't match the sound of bravery, grocery, delivery, scenery, machinery, mystery. So I'm going to keep this one in my oddball category, the stationary, even though it had an ERY that visually matched that, it didn't sound like the rest of them. And as we take a look here, bravery, grocery, delivery, scenery, machinery, mystery, they have an uri ending sound. Category, directory, almost sounds like it should belong in this category, doesn't it? History, victory. These two also sound like they should belong in this category. So you are welcome to put them over here in this oddball category. Or one thing mostly just to note is how difficult it is to spell those words, because they sound exactly the same, right? They sound like this ERY, but they've got an ORY. So those are ones that you're going to have to just sort of memorize when we think of history, victory, directory. And sometimes people say directory. So this one, depending on, I think I even said it with an ORI the first time around. So this one here might depend on just how you say it. But these two sound like the ERYs. You want to just note that and begin to memorize those. The rest of these, category, dormitory, inventory, laboratory, those have a clear ORI sound, and we can remember how to spell those. Military, imaginary, January, secretary, February, necessary, library, ordinary, and then the one you can't really see, stationary. Those all sound clearly like an ARY, an airy sound. So the only really tricky ones are deciding between whether it's an O-R-Y or an E-R-Y on some of these, like victory and history. Okay, so friends, go ahead and sort your words. You can sort visually, or you might start to pull some of them like I did and sort just by sounds, the way that they sound, like I pulled victory, history, directory over here. But do know that on your closed sort, we're going to write them like this. So when you're done sorting your words, make sure that you write your words in columns in your WordWork notebook. Thanks for thinking with me.